Look, we're never going to get 90% of the population thinking in economic terms, right? What is all this government spending going to do to inflation rates, and how will it affect the boom-bust cycle and all that? But you nevertheless need to build a sizable minority that understands these things. And that's going to be our challenge for the next few years coming up, is understanding the effects of government spending, right? That's something that we've covered many times. The right-wing critique of government spending has almost always just been on the taxation side, right? Is that the downside of government spending is when they tax you and they take your money away. Almost never talk about the problems with government spending in the sense that it drives up prices for raw materials, for gasoline, for labor, right? I mean, that's just the government sucks out of the real economy a lot of the brightest people, because since they have access to limitless funds, they can just jack up wages. And this idea that government workers make less than the private sector, not true when you're talking about the highly technical stuff and the people who have master's degrees and PhDs and so on, or when they work for government contractors. Those people are highly paid. They're paid for by government money, and they're prevented from doing the more productive things in society because the military sucks them out and then drives up wages for the private sector that tries to compete with these highly paid, with these high military wages. And then also, if you look at the fact that almost half of the Pentagon budget, and not including the additional veteran stuff, but about half of that Pentagon budget is just going to these government contractors, it's going to these weapons contractors. And of course, they're living high on the hog right now because so much of that money is going, so much of that money is coming to them so they can produce arms that go to Ukraine. I mean, basically, the faster you can crank out more weapons and arms, the faster you're just going to get paid for them, because there's no limit on what the demand is right now. And they're trying to backfill the arsenals right now because they gave away so many anti-tank weapons and such to Ukraine. So that's just a cash cow right now in terms of government military contracting. So that's a huge interest group right there that's going to want to keep that gravy train going. And a lot of those people are actually Republicans, of course. So they're going to oppose any decline in military spending there. But our job at the Mises Institute, and anyone who cares about actually really understanding how you're being exploited, how your life is being made worse by all these government money printing, by increases in spending, by these huge budgets, is understanding how it affects the boom-bust cycle, understanding how it affects inflation. If we get through the next economic crisis and the left succeeds in basically convincing everybody that, well, there was a crisis because there wasn't enough regulation. There was a crisis because the late-stage capitalism, quote unquote, caused this problem. There was a crisis because of something China did. And that people come away without any better understanding about how actually there was a crisis because we endured more than a decade of just runaway easy money that the central bank facilitated, and then it caused a fake economy, a malinvestment-based economy that had to collapse at some point because you couldn't just keep printing money forever unless you wanted hyperinflation. That there's a chain of events there that was caused by a lack of enough freedom in the economy. There wasn't enough laissez-faire left in the economy to allow for the resilient sort of economic growth that we need. And it was ruined then by what's been going on since 2009 in terms of all of these asset purchases by the central bank, in terms of constant meddling, regulation, runaway government spending that distorts the economy. That's what causes the crash. That's what we've been trying to explain for years and years. But if you don't have at least some critical portion of the population that understands that, well, then the next crisis is just going to be, oh, well, we should have just printed more money. We should have just regulated the private sector more. We should have just trusted Bernie Sanders, and we wouldn't have had this problem. So that's what the fight is right now. And as long as you continue to think that military spending is costless, well, you're just part of the problem.